appreciate the segue. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. I just want to help you guys. I know it can be tough to break into a new industry or get a new job after, getting out of college or out of boot camp or, just breaking in general. So I'd like to keep it pretty informal, so if at any point you have any questions or you want to talk about something specifically, feel free to just ask, okay? So how many people are .NETies here? .NET developers, want to be .NET developers? Majority of us here? Okay. And how many people are, I guess, considered entry level or new to this? Okay. Now how many people are, developers who are maybe, siloed to older technology, legacy technology, are looking to do something different? Do we have anyone like that? Okay, so, okay. One, great. Part of this is tailored to that crowd, but we could talk more about breaking in. That's totally fine. So, how long has is there any of you in the group who, have been, how long has it been since you've been looking for jobs? 5 months, 6 months, a month? Who's been on the market for a while? Anyone? One? Okay. Have you had any interview scenarios, or what are some of your experiences so far?
I've had a couple interviews, but no callbacks. Or they say that if positions that someone else won't fit in.
Okay. What means did you get the job? Did you find the job on your own, or?
Applied on like Indy and LinkedIn, a couple of places.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else got their resume out there, just passively looking? Mostly?
I've been looking for a couple months, but
okay.
No major
Okay. Well, some of the things I want to talk about they're probably really basic, and they are basic. And I'll preface by saying that you guys are the experts in your field. I'm a recruiter, and the things I'm going to be able to provide for you are writing your resume, networking, job search, those types of things. But I do read resumes every day. That's pretty much all I do. So I have come across some things that could really help people get into the market, and probably have some good ideas too about the types of people our clients are looking for. So these are kind of some of the topics. And excuse the beveled graphics. I thought they were cool, but I found out by our designer today that they're not in anymore. So I should have checked with him before I put the presentation together. But these are kind of the 4 topics that I'm going to kind of hit on today that I think might help us, land that job. First off, your resume. And this is a tough one because everybody has different ideas what a resume is supposed to look like, what it's supposed to be filled up with. And I kind of want to go over just some general tips, formats, some things to kind of keep it simple. Starting off, it's good to have certain information in your resume, but you don't need your full address in there. Sometimes you don't even need your phone number, but it is good to have basic information in there. An appropriate email address, typically, keep it professional, and the contact number that's going to be readily available. So don't put your home number if it's just going to go to the message machine, especially if you're marketing your resume on the boards. Keep it easy, keep it at the top of the page, and keep a simple format too. I see a lot of resumes with designers where they've got beautiful resumes and graphics. You don't need that, really. Our clients are going to spend probably 30 seconds looking at your resume. That's if they even look at it. So they want to briefly look at your resume, get an idea of who you are, and kind of go from there. But basics, like I said, get rid of the crazy email address, come up with something professional. Margins, it's pretty standard, 1-inch margins. I know there's some people who are worried about the length of their resume. Don't worry about it. You don't want a 7-page resume, but you don't have to cram everything into 1 page, 2 page. And you can find that information online telling you how long your resume has to be. It doesn't matter, as long as your resume reflects the criteria of the job you're applying for. That's really the main point there. Sounds silly, but spell check. Check for grammar. I'm not great at it. I let my brother read my resume. Have someone close to you read it. Ask them if it makes sense. share it with your coworkers, share it with other people in your cohort to see if it reads well, and it's good practice to get many eyes on it, make suggestions how to make it better. We'll get to using trademark brands appropriately. I think that's important in a technical resume, and we'll kind of go through that as we go. Corey.
I wanted to add 2 things to that. All the time that I've hired or done interviews, I don't look past the first page. Because if you didn't put anything interesting on the first page, the rest is going to be just as boring. It's not like I'm going to find a picture book. The second thing, if I do, that's cool. But don't do that. So the second was the spell check. I couldn't agree with Dan more. It's amazing how many resumes come across my desk where people have obvious spelling mistakes. If you're a developer, you don't know how to use Word. It puts a red squiggly underneath an error, just like Visual Studio.
Yeah,
And if the red squigglies in Visual Studio don't bug you, then what kind of developer would I be hiring? So ask yourself that, what kind of message are you sending if you didn't even proofread your resume? You're going to be just as bad potentially on the job. Nobody wants to clean up the mess.
And that reminds me of a point. Tense is important. If it's not the most current job on your resume, use past tense. It just doesn't look well to have current tense across your entire resume. It seems pretty meaningless, but it's good to have the proper tense as well. It's just an easier read. It looks more professional. So these are the 4 topics. I write a lot of resumes for people, not write them, but help tailor them to specific clients' requirements. And I find it's good to have a summary. It's good to show what skills you have, and then go into your experience, and then credentials at the end. The summary piece, really, this is your sales pitch. This is your 30-second sales pitch, similar to what you're going to do during an interview. This is who you are. This is what you do. This needs to scream, I can solve your problem, employer. Whatever that requirement is, whatever reason they're bringing you in or interested in you for, your resume needs to address that. Right off the bat, this is why you should be interested in me. Sometimes, you'll see this topic as an objective, or you'll see it as, multiple different categories, but it really needs to be just a quick summary of who you are, what your skills are, and so forth. It doesn't necessarily need to be loaded with soft skills either. And we don't really need to see that, you're an Eagle Scout, or, you're a home brewer on the side. Those things may be interesting, but don't include it. Keep the personal stuff out of your resume. Just a good rule of thumb. Like I said, this needs to be the solution to the employer's problem. They already kind of have an idea of who you are because you applied and they briefly looked at your resume. So the summary needs to be the same as what your sales pitch is going to be when you're introducing yourself at the interview. My wife turned me on to this. She's in academia, and it's called distilling your message. Has anyone heard of that? Or have an idea of what that is? Essentially, it's a communication method. And I'd like to go through like a little bit of exercise here with the people around you. So if you could all just maybe grab another partner. If we have an odd number, maybe 3 in one group, but just find someone next to you. Anyone. So if you want to go ahead and just grab someone now, we're going to go through a short exercise. This is just going to really drill home a point about summary. So feel free to grab somebody. What I want to do is, does anyone not have somebody to speak with? Are we all covered? Everyone good? We're going to switch, so you're all going to get to talk to each other. Anybody? Does anybody need a partner? Does anybody not have a partner? That's it. Whatever your experience is, programming experience, development experience, we're trying to get .NET jobs. So whether it's practical, whether it's an internship, whether it's from boot camp, whether it's a project that you're involved with, whether it's something that you're doing, on GitHub, talk about that to your partner for about a minute. I'll go ahead and time that, and then we're going to switch. All right? You need to give an overview of your experience to your partner for about a minute. Does everyone kind of understand what I'm trying to get through here? All right, and that's all we're going to do. We're going to time this for about a minute. All right, are you all ready? Find someone, talk about your experience to your partner for about a minute. And go to begin. And that's it. That's a minute. How awkward was that? Just for a minute. All right? It's a little bit awkward. Now go ahead and switch. Do the same this time. The other person, explain your experience. Give a good overview. This is supposed to be an overview of your experience. This is who you are, what you've done, what you want to do, hopefully. All right? So let's go ahead and start again. Swap places. Nope, just we'll reset that. You don't have to physically swap, just the other person is going to listen, and then the other person tell your experience. Just switch. All right? It's not supposed to be a dual conversation. Maybe I should have clarified that. It's supposed to be one person telling their experience to the other. You're going to listen for a minute, and then you're going to switch roles. Do we need to start all over again? Can we do it? Perfect. Let's try it again. One more minute.
Same person or swap?
Same person, except this other person's going to tell you about their experience.
Okay, so we swap. The other person.
We're still swapping. It's the other person's turn. Ooh. All right. Well, if you've got a group of 3, one of you will just have to be a good listener. All right? Just in light of time. Can we do that? All right. Let's go ahead and start.
So right now, my current position is threefold. My previous position, I was a consultant, but I had such a specialized set of skills, they actually created this new role. And so this new role, I'm actually heading up a new product. It's an automation software, and I will be heading that up, and I will be overseeing the entire company. I'm also going to still be trained as a consultant, in addition to that, consulting as I did. And then on top of that, I will be helping with exploratory research for AI technology. Yeah. And I just had such a unique background of programming experience, business experience, consulting experience, educating, things like that. So they decided to take all my best aspects and put it into one position.
All right, that's time. How many groups of 3 do we have? Just curious. Raise your hand if you're in a group of 3. Just got one.
Well, we could have paired them up.
Yeah, if you guys want to pair up, go ahead and.
Because he feels left out.
Yeah, that if you want to get rid of the awkward third wheel. If not, no worries. We're going to do this again, except start over. We're going to drill down. Same story, but 30 seconds. You know, this is
Same story, what?
same story. This is an overview of your experience, who you are, what you do, your skills. Now, this time around, you know, take everything you said the first time, but make the message stronger. We want to drill down on what's important here. All right? Does everyone get it?
I'm gonna record that part. See if we can watch this session. All right, you're all being recorded, so.
All right, let's go ahead and start.
In high school, I was
All right, that's it. That's it.
Sorry, shut up.
Sorry, I know it's quick. Now, if you didn't get it all in and you were listening the first time, try to speed it up, get it all in, pull out the important pieces here. You know, really want to give a pretty concise overview. All right. So you've really got 30 seconds. Drill at home who you are. All right. Go ahead and begin.
My company is also promoted to oversee exploratory AI research and additional robotic software programs incorporated in our company. I'm pretty much given free rein of authority without being micromanaged, and I'm able to implement my ideas in a timely and cost-efficient manner.
All right, that's it. Let's take a quick break. Let's relax for a second. You know, this is a lot of awkward talking, a lot of awkward eye contact, social engagement. I get it. You know, this last time, I need you to take that message, and it needs to be 15 seconds. All right, 15 seconds. Who you are, you know, what you do, what your skills are. And then wrap it up, all right? And then we're going to switch and repeat. You guys ready? All right, let's go ahead and start.
I've recently graduated a .NET focus, so got a lot of experience with C# and so now I'm writing a curriculum for them.
All right, stop. It's time to switch again. And we're almost done, so don't worry about this. We are almost done with this.
We're not going to do it 5 seconds.
No, this is the last. This is the last round. All right, you guys ready? And let's go.
I am a robotics consultant specializing in exploring new software to incorporate high-tech companies such as AI technology, and I'm open to traveling anywhere. And
All right, that's it. That's time. Really, that's it. What did you guys think of that? What did you learn, you know, from your partner first off? You know, and how did the story change? I know it's 2 questions in one, but we'll start with the first question.
I think while it's important to talk about your entire story, there's also a lot of fat that you can trim, like really distilling it down to what really got you interested in programming the most and what's the most relevant is truly what's most important. Like, somebody doesn't really want to know that I did C++ in high school.
I think that's good. It's probably true. The idea of this is, you know, to really drill down on who you are and what you do, because when you get in front of a client, you know, you're only going to have a certain amount of time to introduce yourself. And you have to be comfortable speaking about yourself. Does there anybody else have any reflection or anything they want to share?
Well, I think it touches on what you said.
applies to a lot of other people too. I've been developing for 30 years, so I can't give a whole litany of things I've done. I think it's important to know something about what the person you're talking to needs and wants, and focus on that as a sub, and draw on your experience that's related to that, and not to be overly concerned about, I've never worked with X, Y, Z before, but I can learn fast and I can do that, and focus on that problem. Because a lot of the time, I mean, especially with JavaScript libraries before, that's gonna be true for almost everybody. Everybody's gonna have to learn that. So if they're working in that area, web dev, those kind of toolkits. So I think part of it would be drawing on experience, part of it is just, I can do that, whatever, and then try to pitch that.
I appreciate that synopsis, and I think that's kind of what I'm trying to drill down on. And you need to know your audience. You need to know why you're there, and they're taking time out of their day, and they specifically have you there to solve a certain problem. And you're there for a reason. So it's best to understand, what that message is, and when you get that opportunity to introduce yourself, speak to that. Speak to why you're there. Who you are, what's important to you and them, and hopefully, you can get past that highlighter test, because you've only got a certain amount of time to prove to them that, you're the person that is going to benefit their company. So I like this exercise for the fact that you get to talk about yourself. It's practice, and you can really hone in on what your message is. And understanding the audience is really important, and having a concise message of why you're there is important.
One thing I'd add to that too is general company has a whole website full of information about the company. Advantageous to read that website, drill down into maybe an unusual level of detail, to get better understanding exactly what they do, maybe what the current challenges are. Then you can stand out by saying, referring to that information in an interview at some point. You studied the company, so you're interested in the company. I understand the problem you're trying to solve.
I think that's a great point, and I agree with you as well. Having an understanding of what their line of business is, what they're doing, what their services are, what their products are, that's important. Everyone has the same resumes. Everyone can talk about the same development responsibilities they've accomplished. Everyone can have the same jargon. Everyone can have the same skills. But when you can relate to their story, and understand their line of business, I think that's very important. And I appreciate that point. And I think you should continue to talk with each other about your experience and get used to that. So, when you're in a situation or an interview, you're comfortable, and your sales pitch is good and concise, and it answers the questions to their problem. I appreciate you going through that. I know that's awkward. I can be pretty introverted, and having to do things like that can seem a little silly at first, but I appreciate everybody participating.
One thing to add to that is show your passion for what you know. Don't go into an interview with excuses. They're not hiring you to find out what you're not good at. They're hiring you to find out what you are good at. And if you're going in as like a junior developer, you know what? They already know you have limitations. So don't spend the first minute of your first impression talking about what you're not good at or giving that impression. So you know what? I just went to a coding academy, and I went to it. I'm using because more than half here went to 150. And you know what? I've been really excited about blah blah blah. I've taken it to the next level, doing blah blah blah. And I am so excited about taking my career to the next step. So that shows you want to go somewhere. But if you sit there just coming up with, I might not be that good at, blah, 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 and I've been looking for a job for a long time. You're a downer, right? Ask yourself, what would it be like to sit across from this guy at a bar, a girl at a bar, or whatever, Would you wanna talk to them? You know, ask yourself if you're that person that, someone would wanna talk to in an interview and learn more about them. You're both into the same things, how are you gonna talk? So, I mean, I'm not saying have bar time, don't do that, but, your passion will speak volumes as to what your capabilities are.
And take all that and squeeze it down into your summary. I know this first part is about resume, and I know we're kind of getting off on the side, but it's all relative. That summary needs to be concise. Those things about yourself need to be in that summary. It needs to get somebody interested. And if you could show your passion in there, your passion doing that, then that's a good start. The second part of the resume, I think it's important to list the technical skills that you have, and break it down in a logical format so you can easily show the skills that you have. You can do it many different ways. The format is fine, but people want to know, not just what type of development. We know you want to be a .NET developer, but it's good to see where your experience is, what languages you've used. The technical skills should really reflect, the projects you've done, the experience you have. Try not to put anything on there that isn't necessarily relative to you. If you tried it once, or you read about it, it doesn't belong up here. This is the technical skills section of your resume. This is more so an idea of what you're proficient in, where your skills are. And, people are going to look at that to see, what have you used, what have you done? What's bad about an employer only spending a short amount of time looking at your resume, during that 30 seconds, in their head, they've got a little yellow highlighter. And they're thinking about what they want and what the requirement is. And they're looking for certain things on your resume. So, I mean, your resume has to reflect the requirement, So, I think if you've got your skills section there and you've got the list of the tools that you've utilized, it's easier for them to do that mental highlighting. So put it on your resume, put it under your summary. Use the proprietary notation of the word. If it's Windows or if it's Mac, if it looks a certain way online and it's branded a certain way, you should probably write it like that in your resume.
Whatever you do, don't put something on your resume that you don't know. Don't just put it on there because you put the term or you spent one day in class on it. Something that they asked you to write something in it. You should be able to answer a question. So if you don't know, WCF, well, that's probably a bad example. If you don't know Web API, don't say that that's something that they should hire you for, because that's what your resume is, right? This is the list of skills that they can hire you for, not a list of things you've heard of.
Because it could be that one thing on the list that they're interested in. And if you can't speak to it, it's probably not good to have it on your resume. So it's probably a good idea to scrub it. Back to the trademark representation. I read resumes all day, and there's nothing more annoying when I get a resume that doesn't have the right representation of a word. Because somebody might be OCD. Somebody might really want to see, that you understand a product, you know how to use it. So try to avoid, writing it the wrong way. It seems kind of silly, but it speaks volumes to, the detail. So I recommend, if you don't know, Google it, look it up. It's better to write it down the right way than to keep continually doing it the wrong way. An employer might look down on that. Seems like something small, but they might, So I suggest just stick with trademark representation.
The guy who might be looking at your resume may not be the guy who's hiring you. So, you have a CTO, well, not CTO, but a director of development that's looking at resumes eventually. But initially, it's just like someone in HR. So it's, okay, I need to go find a whole bunch of C# people. They go and they get some C# resumes. And they put them together. But then eventually it ends up in front of someone who knows what they're talking about. So any typo like that is gonna make them go, I'm not sure they know this.
It's a good
You
point.
need to represent that you at least know how to type something about the technology.
A lot of our clients have HR departments, you know, and there's gatekeepers. You know, you're working through a recruiter, you know, and sometimes to break into a company, the toughest person to get past is an HR representative. You know, so you want your resume to look crisp, stand out. You know, if you've got a pile of resumes and they don't look right, but you got one that does, you're probably going to go to that one first. When you get to your experience, there needs to be a certain level of detail as well. You know, obviously the employer. If you're a consultant and you're working for, you know, maybe you're on a solutions team or you're a consultant, they still should probably know who the end client is. You know, it tells a story. You know, so put the employer down. Even if you're working through a staffing firm or you're a contractor, consultant, it's great that you're working for Theoris, but you know, what's going to get the next job is when they see who you worked for. They want to know who the client was. So put the client down. If you're a contractor and you want to put Theoris on the resume, great. Put Theoris, you know, at XYZ, Navient, and then, you know, you could write down that you're a contractor if you want. You don't even have to. That's part of your story, you know. But write the employer down. You need a start and an end date, not just a year. You know, we need a month. You need the year, and you need the same thing for the end date. Or if it's current, just write current, present. It could be hard in between engagements, but you really don't want any gaps in your resume. And I know that's tough, but at all costs, don't leave any gaps. If there's gaps, then and you're doing something else that's non-related, put it in there and just say that. You know, say it. Just avoid the gaps. Make sure everything's included in regards to information. I like bullets, and this is all personal opinion. You know, this is not the way that, you know, that everyone's going to say you have to write your resume. But bullets are organized. You know, it draws attention to what's important in your resume. Stories are great, you know, but they just want to know enough about you to get you in the interview. You can tell your story once you get to the interview. They can learn about your product, your services, your stack, all that great stuff about what you're doing in the interview. But the resume just really needs to speak to your responsibilities. The first top two bullets really just needs to be a description of you, your job function, what you're doing. And then the rest needs to be accomplishments. You know, if you've got a lot of responsibility, great. You know, try to keep it between 5 to 12 or so bullets. The most important, you know, accomplishments need to go up there. And if you've got a lot of experience, but you're interviewing a client who wants XYZ, you know, but you've got XYZ and all these other things too, maybe it's important just to focus on the XYZ, you know. Focus on what the client's looking for. You know, you can discuss your other skills later, but talk about what they're wanting. You know, there's not a lot of time they're going to look at your resume. I want to keep drilling that down, you know, so they need to understand that your resume reflects the requirement, because you got a lot of people to go through. You got to go through your recruiter if you're going through a staffing firm, and you got to go through the salesman who's approving the recruiter's resume. Then that salesman might have to go through an HR representative who's doing the same thing. And then by the time the resume gets in front of a manager, you know, there's no questions. You can just look and know you're the person to talk to. So important points. I mean, if you put a bullet down, ask yourself, is this really relevant to the job? If it's not, and you've got a long resume, get rid of it. You know? Practical experience is always the best, and I understand breaking in if you don't have a ton of practical experience. Any relevant work. If it's educational work, if it's a capstone project, you know, if it's an internship, or maybe it's just a project you're involved with, you got to write about it. You know, they've got to see it on your resume. You know, you can write it, you can change it from professional experience to anything else, you know, if it's not relevant to your practical work experience. You know, you could call it project experience if you're worried about it. Do whatever you have to do, but get it on there. Again, focus on the job, you know, what you did. There's sometimes I get a lot of resumes, and I might be going off on a tangent here, but it looks like people literally just copy and pasted the responsibilities from their last job, you know, and pasted it on their resume. You know, don't do that. You know, a lot of times you end up doing something different anyway. Just be honest about it. Write about what you did. Talk about your skills. Set down the foundation. This was my job function. This was the situation. You know, these were my duties. These were the actions, and these were the outcomes, really. You know, and put those accomplishments in your resume in bullet form. You know, we don't really need to talk about the environment at the end of every job section either, after every position. You know, they saw your skills list. They have an idea you're a .NET developer. You know, they have an idea of the skills you work with, so they don't necessarily need to know about, you know, the technical environment down to all of those things in your skill set listed below the resume and environment. It's just taking up space. Again, as I put at the bottom, you know, try to avoid using job descriptions to create your resume. You know, it needs to be a reflection of you. It doesn't need to be the same jargon that is on a job description or what everybody else is using. And I know it's not relevant to necessarily developers, but when I'm looking at resumes for business analysts or product owners, I always read jargon like gather requirements from stakeholders, liaison to the development teams. Those things are all great, you know, but it's better just to say this was our business, these were the users, this is the software they were using, and this is how we were making it better. You know, tell that kind of story instead of using all the jargon that, you know, you see over and over again. So it needs to be specific to you and what you did.
To add to that, one thing that I found useful is when you're building your resume, there's nothing wrong with saying the technologies you used in a job. Like putting a list, I use ASP.NET Web Forms, ASP.NET MVC, JavaScript, jQuery, Bootstrap. You could put that all in one bullet point. Cold Fusion, right? Cold Fusion, if you're that old, or like security holes. That was cruel, wasn't it? But I mean, that's just one bullet point. So if you did something that you're really proud of at a position that you were in, you know, it's okay to brag about it. You know, increased efficiency of their primary systems by 300%. You know, implemented proper source control, you know, techniques. You know, introduced unit testing. You know, how did you help the team wherever you were? And those sorts of things speak volumes, because I know when I would look at a resume, I'd be like, okay, so what do they know? Okay, cool. So I decide at that point, am I going to bring them in and waste my time? Yeah. And nobody wants their time wasted. You don't want your time wasted. So, yeah, you don't want to go into an interview where you put a technology down you could not talk confidently about. So if you're going to say, I did ASP.NET MVC, that's something that you know, great. They know what your position is. But don't put ASP.NET MVC and then ASP.NET in general. Because they'll start asking you non-ASP.NET MVC questions, and you'll look bad. Now they have to make a decision. What were they going to hire you for? But anyway, yeah, you can save space by just putting those technology things just in a single bullet point.
No, I appreciate that. It's good too to be specific. I see requirements asking for web developers, you know, but really, to me, you've got a bunch of different types of developers, you know, and some people organize them different ways, but it seems like it used to be you had a programmer. you know, and then you had a software engineer 1, 2, or 3, and the further along you got, the responsibilities changed. You know, you went from doing to maybe solving more problems to eventually, if you were into getting into design and architecture, and it seemed like there was a method to the madness, and it was easier to say, hey, this person's this, this, and this. It's all kind of convoluted anymore. All the requirements now just say web developer, you know. So it's kind of good too to get down to the specifics. You know, if you were working with a particular stack, mention that. If you were working, you know, mainly on the back end, say I was working on the back end. If you were on the front end, I was working on the front end. You know, whatever it is you were doing. If you were doing database development, mention that. You know, it's good to paint the picture of what you did. You know, and just saying I used this isn't enough. You know, so get down to the specificity of who you are, what you did, what your comfort is, and kind of go there. You know, last thing you want to do is look like something that you're not. You know, if they're looking for a full stack developer, but you don't have any experience with SQL, then that's probably not a good thing. You know, so err to the side of showing exactly what you did. You know, and try to be as appropriate as you can, demonstrating what you've done without leading people to believe you've got skills that you really don't have. You know, there's nothing wrong with falling short on a requirement. Not everyone's going to check every box, and a lot of times those requirements are wish lists anyway. They want to know. They more so want to understand. Can you learn fast? You know, they want to understand more about how you solve problems. You know, how you do things, rather than do you have this, and this, and this much years of experience doing it. You know, when we talked about having this class, I was really thinking about what do clients want, you know, and you get the idea that you're going to get in there and you're going to have to do a technical assessment, and sometimes you are, but after talking with a lot of our clients and a lot of our team, that during the interview process, they really more so want to know from a conceptual level, you know, how you solve problems, you know, how you work through problems, you know, and kind of what your mindset is, and the process it takes to go through that, you know. They still might have you whiteboard, and they still might have you write an API, but a lot of it's going to boil down to problem solving, you know, and how you think things through, you know, and how you collaborate with others. So all good things to keep in mind. Education and certs, this is another one. I feel like if you're light on experience, put it at the front of your resume. You know, if you've got experience to speak to, put it at the end. And same thing with certs. If your certs are relevant to the job, put them front and center. You know, your employer doesn't need to know that, you know, you're first responder certified, or, you know, you're a certified Eagle Scout, or all those other personal things. Just keep it out, keep it relevant to the job.
But if you're a Microsoft certified professional, put that on there.
Yeah.
Especially if they're a consulting firm, because they will want you for your MCP ID. And get some certifications, more money from Microsoft.
Degrees, you know, BA, BS, keep it simple. You know, if your major and your minor is relevant, put it on there. If your AS is relevant, put it on there. You know, I put the GPA thing on here. Truthfully, I hate it. Don't put your GPA on your resume unless it's important to you and you really got to have it. You know, I could see like being fresh out of school, how that's important, landing your first job, but if you've been out of the field for a while, or it's been 10 years since you were in school, you know, and your major's non-related, you know, no one needs to know about my 3.6 in English, you know. So if it's not relevant, remove it, you know. And again, with the certifications, make sure that they apply to the job. You know, your resume really needs to speak to the position you're applying for. So your resume could even change depending on, you know, different jobs. You know, we're going to get to job boards later and how we market ourselves a little bit later, but we'll jump back into that. But This is an important slide here. I feel like this probably reflects a lot of us, and we could all bang our heads against each other's and come up with some good ideas, maybe talk through it. Really, breaking into a job is really about having content on your resume. Every requirement I get those junior positions. Everybody asks me, hey, do you got junior positions? Yeah, I do, and they ask for 1 to 3 years of experience. Every single one of them. And you probably see that too when you're applying for jobs. Yes?
So how do you get around that? How do you, because as someone who doesn't have any relevant job experience, but has plenty of relevant project experience, I think some people just see the fact that I don't have any job experience and say, what is this kid know?
I think that's true. And I think, this is the section where you might need to tailor professional experience to something else, call it project experience. You got to keep practicing. It's like anything, and you've got to practice the right way. You're not going to get good shooting free throws, if you're not shooting free throws every day, and you're not going to get good at shooting free throws if you're not bending your knees, and your elbows not bent, you're not extending, you're not following through. So you got to make sure to keep your principles and do the things right, and practice and get on GitHub. Look for open source projects. I know it seems like work when you've got a 40-hour job, but when you're trying to transition, you need to show that you're active in the community, that you're doing things practical that are relevant to somebody, So, and you guys probably know more than me, but I want to see your GitHub experience. I want to see what you've done with C#. I want to know about that project. I want to know the makeup of that project, One thing too, when you're looking for those projects, it's good that the project has a database, that you have, permissions, things like that. I felt like I should put that on there because, that type of architecture stack is going to fill the need of a client who needs to have structured query language, who needs, Transact SQL, who needs those things. So look for projects like that you can contribute to that have those. It's going to take some work, but look for it. They're out there. Talk about what you're contributing to. And it's always good to keep learning as well. And it could get expensive, but there's free means out there. Microsoft Virtual Academy has some free courses. They've got stuff you can pay for too, but it's out there. Get involved, show your work. You learn something on Pluralsight or Lynda, utilize that, practice that. I can't stress enough that practicing post boot camp, how important that is. If I graduated from boot camp in December, people are going to want to know what I've done programming since December till now. Why I'm looking for a job. And that's your opportunity to fill your resume up, and you might find a legit project on GitHub that you're really making a real contribution to. People want to see what you're doing, and it's tough to see what you're doing if you don't have the practical experience working for XYZ. Well, show that practical experience you learn and show how you contribute, just keep building. It's not easy. I get it, it's not, but you got to keep trying. You got to keep filling up your resume, find things to put on your resume, projects, explain it to people. It shows your passion, it shows you're hungry, it shows that you're looking to get into this field, and you're going to have a chance to network. Somebody put that project together, that somebody probably works somewhere. The more connections you meet, the more people you get involved with, the more we have to interact. Those are the things that are going to get you in front of people, and really all you got to do is do enough just to get in front of somebody and then sell yourself, show that you're willing to learn. And the way to do that is, hey, I've been involved in this, and this. Yeah, I haven't got a practical job since graduating, but I was doing this in my former life. I'm super excited about this now. I'm doing this in my own time. These are the things I'm contributing to. It shows passion, it shows desire, and sometimes that goes a long way. Sometimes people sometimes employers have lots of employees who meet the requirement, but maybe those people just are negative, or maybe they're not like, happy about their jobs, or maybe they don't realize how good they have it, and maybe they want to bring somebody fresh in who's hungry, you know, who's willing to learn, you know, and that's the majority of us here, you know. Get out there, learn, discover, practice. You know, it might cost money, but you know, there's Pluralsight, there's Lynda, there's places you can go. You know, I even know people who use SlideShare for like publishing their work. Maybe you did something cool on GitHub. Put it on SlideShare. You know, publish it. Let some people review it. You know, just get out and do it. You know, there's also content you can find. I've used TradePub before. I don't know, has anyone ever used TradePub? It's basically a free publication, you know, free magazine subscriptions, things like that. People who have free ebooks. You know, a lot of companies who are marketing their books and maybe they're not broken in the market yet will put things, you know, for free just to get people to read it. You know, and you'd be surprised some of the free technical books you can get on TradeHub. You know, so check it out. You know, look at those things. Keep learning, especially if you need content in your resume. You know, people might turn their heads at it, but it's real experience if you're doing it and you're putting time into it. You know.
Something else that you can do that might be fun, because money is a good motivator, right? We all have family. I think we all have family, right? You know, or friends. Some of us. You know, might be an exception. Ask them if there's an app that they want written, or a website they want written. You wouldn't do it for a lot of money, but at least you're getting paid to do something and continue your skills. Now you have something to show that you got paid for. So, you know, someone else's money is on the line, but also yours. So you get something out of it, and so do they. And that might help you in a couple ways. One, it gives you practical experience on owning a project. Two, if you know anyone who also is a developer or maybe a designer, you can work with them and see how the two of you work to build a project together, because not every developer is a jack of all trades. Rarely will you find someone who's everything. And if you do find them, keep them and pay them whatever they want. And three, that's something you can put on your resume. I took the initiative to go and build a project and deliver it. And here's what I learned when I did that. Those sorts of things speak volumes to how you will work with the team that they're ending up hiring you to work with. So keep that in mind, and I think that'll benefit.
You know, I wish I would have added that, but I mean, you could go to WordPress, Adobe. Isn't there a lot more? You guys know you could build websites online fairly cheap. Has anyone done that? Has anyone went to WordPress? Or, I mean, those are things you could do to build your portfolio. I appreciate you mentioning that. Does anyone have any other good ones for the group that you know they could go to outside of like WordPress? Or
there's online gigs that you get where people are willing to pay like, hey, it's almost slave labor, but, you know, like the places where it's like they'll give you $500 to build something. You know, but you could do a number of those and build out your resume. And at least show that you can get something done under pressure. Maybe not disclose how much you got paid for it, but at least you can show a deliverable. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to show an example of something you've done. And you want to show that you can overcome adversity. Because software development, like I usually say in the 150 classes, is all about failure. You fail most of the time. You're excited when you finally succeed. You fail less, but harder when you're older and a better developer. But that's just because the problems that people send your way are harder. At the same time, though, how you overcome adversity, how you strive to deliver a product, especially a quality product, that's something that if you can show an example of that, will get you higher.
Put those websites on your resume too. Show for it. Build a portfolio. Bring it along with you. Bring your computer with you. You know?
Yeah.
I have designers do that all the time. I have BI developers who do that too. You know? Bring your work with you. Come with a notepad. take notes when you're in your interviews even, you know, show that you're interested. You know, and like Corey said, if, you know, you've got something to show for, great, you know. That's why it's important to get on GitHub, keep practicing, stay involved in the community, even if it's not your job, you know, because those are the things that people are going to want to see, that you're hungry to do something and that you're practicing the profession that you want to be in. You know, we get that it's hard to break into the industry, you know, but I got news. This is a .NET town, and as soon as you get a year of experience, that 40K you made, that first gig you finally landed, which was probably way less than what you were doing before you got into development, a year or two down the line, you're going to be making good money, you know, and then it'll just build on that. You know, there's a pretty good market, and the unemployment rate eventually is pretty low for experienced developers. It really is just about doing enough to get in. I mean, this is the field to be in. It really is. You know, I'm a recruiter, and I keep asking myself, why aren't I developing yet? Or why haven't I went to boot camp yet? Or why haven't I asked my company to pay for that yet? You know, even better. But you know, I mean, it is a great field. You should be excited about that. Yeah, it's tough now, but it'll pay dividends if you just do a little bit extra. And unfortunately, the extra is going to go outside your 40-hour work week. Oh, the job search. There's lots of different means of looking for jobs. You know, if you're not out there on your own, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're not on the boards, you know, it's not a bad thing to go through a recruiting service. I actually recommend it, you know. Get all the help you can, you know, work with recruiters. You know, they might not have all the jobs, but they can help you in some services, you know. They can help you with your resume. They can help introduce you to clients. They can introduce you to people that are going to help you get jobs. You know, I would be selective. You know, I always recommend, you know, you don't have to work with one recruiting firm. Pick a couple. Find a couple recruiters that have characteristics that you have. You know, who value the same things that you value. You know, find somebody who, you know, is genuinely interested in getting you a job. You know, that might take some looking, but interview your recruiter. You know, you'll want to know when you're working through a firm like ours, you know, are you working with the managers, and who are those managers? You know, I know at Theoris, you know, when somebody asks me about a job, I don't have any problem disclosing who the client is. You know, I don't have any problem telling who the manager is that we work with, all the way down to the employers we've hired there. And not all recruiting firms are like that, but I feel like being transparent is the best. Because if I'm transparent with somebody about all the details about my opportunity, and I'm real with them about their likelihood of getting that job, you're probably going to be real with me and say, hey, I'm in the mix for 3 other jobs, and this one's number 3 on my list. You know what I mean? So we're humans. You know, it's easy to get what I call sales horny. You know what I mean? And try to be one and done with people, but try to build a relationship. You know, it might be enticing to chase something because you might seem like you're somewhat of a fit, but ask if that client has a history of hiring junior people, or if they're the client that, you know, has to meet every requirement, because there are some clients who are flexible there. You know, they just want to know that you have some type of practical experience somewhere and that you play well in the sandbox with others. That's it, you know. So ask, you know, ask what kind of relationships, you know, the recruiting firm has with particular clients. You know, you'll want to find out if it's a new client or if it's someone they've got a good relationship with, or what their habits are, their hiring habits, the type of people they look for. You know, how people deliver their software is important. You know, you wouldn't think about it, but it is. You know, so if you're familiar that they have certain processes, maybe they're Scrum, Kanban, or maybe they're Agile, or maybe they're Waterfall, it's probably best to kind of get informed on those things before you go in, so you can learn how they're servicing the public. You know, how they're getting their software out there. I kept the recruiting services small. Go ahead.
I was just saying, when you mentioned about like disclosing information about your client, what is it common for? Is it by like certain recruiting companies, like I got a call from a recruiter and he said it was like a closed search or something, so they couldn't tell me what the company was. Is that common?
Yeah, it's common, and in my opinion, it's a terrible practice. You know, I would never go to a job and apply if I didn't know who the client was.
I know when I was interviewing with Theoris for my current job, I actually asked during my first interview, so who is the client? Because I want to know if this company I feel like could be a good fit for, and I know if I can like find out who it is, I probably said sorry, I can't help you then.
I mean, I've had clients who came to us and just asked, you know, don't disclose, you know, this position, usually maybe because it's not budgeted. Doesn't mean we don't want to find people for that. You'll get in those scenarios, but it's a good rule of thumb to be transparent. I have no problem telling you who we're working with, you know, and why they need the position filled. You know, it could be from attrition, it could be from growth, it could be, you know, it's good to know. It's good to know, I think, you know, and it builds trust, you know. There's things about recruiting that are good, some things are bad, you know, it's all opinion based, but I feel like if you're not transparent, that's probably not the recruiter you want to work with. You know, what's unfortunate about that is maybe that's their company's practice and that firm just happens to have more jobs than anyone else in town. You know, you might have to deal with that, but I have seen scenarios where companies won't disclose a client, and then next thing you know, you've got the right to represent in front of you, and you think you're signing it because you're going to client ABC, and the next thing you know, your resume is all over town, you know, and then you come in 2 months later and you apply for a job. They're like, oh, we've already seen your resume. And you're like, that's great. I've never even heard of you. How did that happen? Has anyone experienced that before? I have. Maybe not yet, but there you go. Mark that company off the list. You know what I mean? Those really aren't great practices that kind of give recruiting and sales a bad name. You know, I can't stress enough. Find a recruiter who's transparent. Who cares? Career boards are good. You know, some are better than others. I recommend LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn needs to reflect your resume. There's other boards, and they're not bad. There's some positives to them. You know, I'm a recruiter, and I can't tell you the last time I was on Monster or Career Builder. You know, and maybe that says something about me, but what I'm finding is that the users are declining. You know, 10 years ago, that's all I had to do, or when I started this, you know, 5 years ago, all I had to do was go to Career Builder. I didn't even need to go on Monster. I could get it all in Career Builder. Everyone put their resumes there. Everyone marketed their jobs there, but not necessarily so much. A lot of people are using LinkedIn. Almost everybody, you know. So I know it seems like social media, it feels like Facebook, it feels like Instagram, but it's really not. It's just for professional networking. Get on it, you know. You can still put your resumes on Monster, Career Builder, Dice. The only thing I caution you is that you really should be tailoring your resume to the position you're applying for. And if you put a resume on Career Builder and every firm in town or across the country who's looking for that .NET developer pings your resume on a keyword, you're now in their CRM, their applicant tracking system as forever in that system forever as whatever resume you put in that system. So keep that in mind. You know, it's funny because one of the things I do when I get resumes from people is I get curious. You know, Theoris has been around for 30 plus years. I'll pull up every resume you put on a board since 1995, and I'll go through and I'll compare them. And you'd be surprised how many times resumes change, how many times, you know, things aren't really what you say they are, which isn't a bad thing, but that's what happens when you put a blanket resume on a board, so just be cautious of that, you know. I would suggest, you know, put your contact information on LinkedIn. If an employer, you know, reaches out to you, send them your resume personally. But if you really need to get your resume out there and you really want to market yourself and have a wide audience, then by all means, put it on every board. just beware that, you know, whatever you put on there is for it's on the internet. It might get deleted or you might take it off, but it's sitting on someone's server. It's probably not going to go away for a while, you know.
Make sure to look at your privacy settings. You may want to share some things, but not necessarily everything. I had a recruiter one time send me a message to tell me happy birthday because my birthday was available on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yep. If you didn't turn it off, it's on. You know, you don't want everyone in the world to see your connections. Don't let them. Just turn it off. You only can let people know as much as they want to know. You know, but if you're on there and you're looking for a job, you should say, "Hey, I'm open to new opportunities." You know, like I said, career boards aren't bad, and I don't mean to be negative about them. You know, there's still some perks you can see over here on the side. There's lots of job postings. There's other good things on there like webinars, good articles. You know, I still get on them more for the articles than I do looking for candidates. I like LinkedIn. You know, I feel like there's a lot of benefits to it. You know, this is your chance really to showcase your skill set, put your projects on there. You know, get it on there. Get the links to your websites on there. You know, if you publish anything, put it on there. You know, if you put anything on SlideShare, any presentations, get it on there. You know, the more you can market yourself, the better. LinkedIn also has a lot of great applications if you haven't checked them out. You know, there's a job search application, SlideShare, which I love, where I can get just enough information to be dangerous, you know. Sales Navigator. I haven't been on Learning yet, but supposedly it's a tool where you can go get free educational material. They also have a LinkedIn Elevate, which I honestly haven't used that yet. In regards to tips, accept invitations from people. You know, it's networking. They might not seem like they're within your, you know, scope of people you're going to work with, but go ahead and connect to them. You know, even if it's a recruiter reaching out for a job that's non-related to the skills, connect to them. That way they have your information, they have your phone number, they have your email, they can reach out to you. Once you get a job and 5 years down the line, you don't want to get 100 calls from a recruiter, because you will. In a .NET town, you can remove that stuff. But for now, put that information on there. You know, get it out there. I suggest keeping current. When you change jobs, change it. Keep a professional picture on there as well. You know, I see some funny stuff, but if you're trying to get a job, you know, take a professional picture, you know, or at least make it look professional. Networking, you know, I'm new. This is only my second meetup, and I enjoy it, you know. Go to some meetups. There's probably a much bigger list. These are just some of the ones that I know of. You know, whether it's relevant or not, go network, go meet people. You know, when you're thinking about projects or extra stuff to do on the side, this is the group you're going to do it with. You know, talk about your interests with each other, or partner with each other to see how you could benefit each other. You know, you're only going to be able to help each other, you know. Run your ideas across from each other. Just do those things, you know. There's a lot of tech event hosts here in town. TechPoint puts on a lot of events. Women in Tech do. There's also Ladies in Software as a Service. There's Indy IoT. There's events in town. Sometimes they cost money, but go to those events, you know, network. The more people you meet, the better it's going to be, you know. And if you know there's a client you want to work for, then go meet those people who work there. Connect to those people who work there. Send them an invite and tell them you're so-and-so, that you're into this and that, you know, and you'd like to know more about your company, and maybe you want to do coffee or something like that. You know, keep it professional. Don't do dinner after 6, you know, have coffee, whatnot. And most importantly, it goes without saying, represent yourself and your employer in a positive light. It's not Facebook. Don't put negative things on LinkedIn. You know, don't talk about the job you got fired from. Don't talk about the person you don't like at work. Don't share company information that's not privy to the world. You know, probably a good practice to avoid putting that type of company information on there. You know, how you act on social media says a lot about you, you know, and if you're constantly putting negative things on LinkedIn, why would anybody want to work with you? you know, keep it positive, you know, treat others like you want to be treated, really. Even on LinkedIn or even at these meetups or recruiting events, just keep it real. Be human. Treat each other with integrity. And like I said, you don't have to go and air everything to the world on LinkedIn. You know, just keep it professional. Pretty simple rule of thumb. These interview prep. Yeah.
I can't stress enough how important it is for you to end up at meetups, because that's where you're going to meet employers. Someone who works for a company that sees you at the meetup knows that you're there all the time, that you just talk with, get chummy with, what have you, and then they have an open. You're never in front of the other developers in town. You're violating rule number 1. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, if you don't know anyone, your only option is a recruiter, or trying your luck. But having someone who's already on the inside vouch for you is a big deal. Because not to belittle recruiters, they're on the outside. They don't know you. But the people that you see every single week or every single month that you're interfacing with, that know that you're at these events, that's a big deal. And you present at a meetup. I don't have to know everything. So you know what? I learned this really cool thing. I want to talk about it. Nothing wrong with that. Even if you're an introvert, it'll help with your communication skills. So those sorts of things are such a leg up, because that's how I think I've gotten almost every one of my jobs. Wasn't try and get my resume out to everyone. Someone knew me and gave me a chance.
Letters of recommendation are a good thing. You know, so if you help somebody out on a side project, they write you a letter of recommendation, those go a long way too.
At the very least, get a reference that someone can call up on. And if they're a software developer, then even better, because they can speak to what you know.
Where would be the best place to put references? Like on your resume, on LinkedIn,
I've always found it easier but it depends, because with me it's a little different, because I've been in the game a long time.
Yeah.
But on the bottom I say references available upon request.
Okay.
Because if someone's interested in talking with you, they'll ask you for a reference. If you put a reference on there, if they're not interested in you, you basically just wasted a couple lines.
Yeah.
Don't put your mom.
Or your cousin.
Yeah.
You know, or
put a professional reference on there.
just have a name, a phone number, and email. That's it. And make sure that person knows that you're using them as a reference. You don't have to have a form. You don't have to have those things. Just have it readily available to people who are going to speak on your behalf.
And I keep that off my resume, because I want them to call me. I'm not looking for a job all the time, but the point is, you want them to call you and initiate the communication.
So once you get that call from an employer, who's interested in you, because it will happen, respond within 24 hours. Respond. Let them know what your availability is down to the days and the hour, and that you're interested, and that you can come on site or do whatever it takes. Walk in on your hands, whatever. Be there, show up, look professional. These things really, I'm actually pretty introverted myself, and saying these things kind of makes me uncomfortable, but I do it with everybody, even people who've been in professional world for a long time, because if you're out of practice, some of these things can go to the wayside if you're nervous. But be excited, greet everyone appropriately, shake everybody's hands, sit down last, speak clearly enough, address everybody, at the presentation, everybody in the panel interview, be respectful, try not to interrupt, interject when it's appropriate, but let people speak. You want them to do the most of the talking, all right? Dress appropriately. Those are just the basics, and I've had great talented developers go in to jobs with every credential under the sun, and they're amazing people, but maybe they were just out of practice or nervous, and they didn't shake somebody's hand, or they came right in and sat down, or they did something that somebody said, "Oh, that was weird." And then right immediately from the get-go, the first impression was wrong. So try to avoid that. Try to be respectful. Look like you're there for the job.
Oh,
Go right ahead.
two things I wanted to add to that. One, don't bullshit. Whatever you do, don't bullshit anyone in the room, because you don't know who's in there. And if you don't know an answer to something, it's okay to recognize you don't know it. Say, look, I don't know. Give me more information. I'm not sure I've got enough detail to solve that problem. Or, you know what, I haven't addressed that before. Humility is a good thing. Don't lead with humility. Go, I don't know this, I don't know that. Don't do that. But if someone asks you a question, you don't have to answer. Whatever you do, don't try coming up with an answer. Think you've got to have one. Because the tech guy in the room will immediately detect the BS. And there's no way you're getting that job. He doesn't want someone making stuff up working for him. And two, I know a little trick. I try not to interrupt. That's whenever someone's talking, wait 3 seconds after they're done. Just wait 3 seconds. You'll find they don't say anything, and just right at the end of 3 seconds, you'll see you can now start talking, and people will feel listened to because they were.
Okay, so yeah, and we'll get to that too. This is, our company does this. We call it a star response. You may have heard of it. It's just a simple way to remind yourself how to answer questions. Really, when somebody asks you specifically about something, you need to lay the foundation, the overview of the situation that you're in when you experience what they're asking. Whatever those responsibilities were. Say, this was the responsibility, this was the problem, this is what I was set out to solve, these were my actions, this is what we did. If you did it yourself, say I, use the appropriate pronoun, and then tell what the results were. They're not always going to be success stories, but the great thing about failing is that you learn something, and then you probably fixed it later on, So if you have to remind yourself, or you're nervous about how you're going to answer something, try this method. It's not for everyone. You could call it something different, but tell the story. This is probably more so related to what Ori was speaking of. There's really 3 good ways you want to answer a question, a technical question. The best answer always is yes. I've worked with this. This was the situation, this was the responsibility, these were my actions, this was the outcome. Those are great. Keep it short. Don't get on a long-winded, entire 20-minute story. Hit the nail on the head. Go through your star response. That's the best answer. If it's no, that's fine. Say that, but then if you've done something similar, mention it. If somebody wants to know what your front-end MVC experience is and you haven't used Angular, be like, no, I haven't used that, but I did this in React. This is the situation, this is what I did, That's better. That's a better answer. It's a no answer, but it's a better answer, And then again, if the answer just is flat out no, ask about it. Tell me about that. What are you doing with it? Then maybe you might come up with a story of when you used a technology where it was the same situation, you didn't know about it, and you had to hit the ground running, and you were able to do that in a month's time frame. Or you learned a different language, or you did something different. The worst answer ever is just no. Or actually, that's not the worst answer, is making something up or digging into the BS. But no is probably the next worst answer. So try to avoid that. After every interview, you need to ask your employer, or the person interviewing you, do you have any concerns with my ability to do this job? This is an important one, because they're usually going to tell you right away if there were concerns, or maybe you went over something too fast, or maybe they just threw something out there and it was important, but it didn't seem like important because it wasn't on your requirement and they didn't talk about it much, or you gave a short answer. Ask this question because you'll be surprised about what you dig up, and there will be someone in the room that maybe everyone loves you, but the wild card in the corner really needs someone to have this skill, and he might mention that when you ask that question. So ask, do you have concerns with my ability to do this job, all right? And then always good to ask too, when are you going to make a decision? When am I going to hear from you next? What's the next steps, And then the other questions you need to ask, they really need to be questions that are pertinent to you to take the job. If work flexibility is important and you have to take your kids to daycare every day at 8 o'clock, and you've got to pick them up every day by 5, they need to be flexible for you, maybe like skipping lunch or having a flexible schedule or working in your hours. You want to know those questions. You don't want to get in a situation where you get a job and then they're like, Dan, everyone else is here at 7:30. Where are you? Oh yeah, by the way, I drop my kids off at school at 8 o'clock every day. So ask those important questions, get them out of the way. You'll want to know, we all know what's important to us. If it's money, if it's location, if it's flexibility. Maybe I need 6 weeks of PTO. I've had that thrown out at me, or maybe I need, a 401k or that matches up to however percent, or maybe I need college reimbursement. Ask those questions. If you didn't get it on the front end, ask. I wrote the questions. I was researching. I don't do many presentations. I talk to people all day and read resumes. And it said to put a question section at the end of the presentation, but I guess we can kind of ask the questions as we go.
I thought you had something that said put Qbert at the end.
Yeah, I just liked Qbert. I read that put something at the end of a presentation, make it funny. Someone might remember your presentation, and I don't know. I went with Qbert. It's probably not funny, but I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, is this stuff helpful?
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything that you guys think that would help make a presentation like this better?
I think something I'd like to add to that last slide. Well, not that one. It's not a question, but I have a question about. When you're at a job interview, ask the questions that you want answered as well. A job interview is a two-way street. It's not just for you to be asked questions by the people that might hire you. It's you asking questions to the people that you want to work for. So like he said, the 6 weeks of PTO, I teach at 11:50. I told them that, when I went to work for Byram, I said, a non-negotiable is that I teach up to 4 times a year. That has to be allowed, because that's a passion that I have. So if that's a deal breaker, I need you to let me know. And they worked with me and said, yeah, well, we have unlimited PTO, so okay. But I didn't know that. I didn't know about the unlimited PTO, but I raised my concern because would I have to sacrifice something? Would I have to teach twice a year instead of 4 times a year? How would I deal with that? Another good question, what's day one on the job look like? What's that like? Do I have to buy my own machine or bring my own machine? There's a lot of companies now that have you bring your machines, so they don't have to buy you. Well, that's an expense for you. So is there reimbursement? You ask them, well, gosh, I'm new to this. Would I get a machine? Other questions. What's the team like that I'd be working with? Would I be working with teams? Would I usually be on projects by myself? What's my opportunity to learn? Do I have a training budget so I can improve myself? Those are things that may not come up in the first interview, or the second interview, or the third. And you may be disappointed if you get hired and you find out you didn't get those questions answered. Now you're in a weird predicament, right? You got the job, but that you're unhappy because you didn't ask questions. So never be afraid to ask questions.
On top of that, showing that asking those questions shows that you have a growth mindset, and that you're really invested and interested in this company for sure. Because a lot of people go to job interviews, like 5 different job interviews as keeps you there, so that when they go to review you, you'll have a much higher chance, because one, they know that you're interested in this job for sure, and two, like you've already displayed the way you think in asking questions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Showing off that your thought process is a big deal. Don't sit there scared. Yeah, like I said, it's like talking to someone about this at a bar. If you're not drinking, you might wish you were, but at the same time, yeah, what would that conversation be like? You have two-way conversations at a bar. You have two-way conversations with people that you're trying to get to know. So why wouldn't you do that if you're going to spend 8 hours of your day with these people? You're going to spend more time with the people that you work with than you will with your family. So, wouldn't you want to interview them? Because they're like family number 2, right?
I'll say too, Theoris, we need .NET developers, as does everyone else in this city. And it's hard to break in, but you're very needed. To that point, we have entry-level programs. We'll have one with Navient coming up in the summer, where we'll be hiring, another 15 .NET related professionals. You don't have to have experience, but we're going to want to see what you've contributed to, where you're practicing. Find projects with databases. I can't stress that enough. Do something online, build a website. We're trying to kick off a program with Car and Odessa as well. These things take a minute to get clients to buy onto this. And I ramble about this often, but and my parents are part of this workforce, and a lot of people in the workforce now are baby boomers. They're our parents, they're our relatives, they're our older siblings. They're 40% of the workforce. In 3 to 10 years, when they're no longer working, there is not going to be enough people in this room to fill the jobs. So remember that, stick with it. It might not happen overnight now, but the things and the extra time you're putting in it now, it will pay off. There will not be enough skilled workers in every profession to fill the amount of jobs that we're going to need to fill, and it's not too far away. If you get a contract job, by all means, finish it. Fulfill your obligations. It can be very enticing later on in your career to jump. And I understand leaving from one permanent job to the next, but if you're doing project work, it's usually good to just fulfill your engagement. See it through. Don't quit. Don't leave early. Because that's how you build a good reputation in town. Even if it's the worst job in the world and nobody else wants to do it well and try to make it better. I guess that's all I really have. I hope this was beneficial. My card's over here. Feel free to reach out. We'll do whatever we can. I know a great developer over here. We'll go one over here as well. Leverage the people you know. Seriously, it's about networking. Come up with something to do. You'll eventually attract the right people who are willing to take a shot on you. Just be prepared when that time comes.
Are cover letters a thing?
Cover letters are nice.
Okay.
I suggest bringing the cover letter. You don't necessarily need to have that up front unless, you're applying directly online. If you're applying directly to a company online, include those things. But it might be a good thing to find out who's hiring. If it's going through an HR department and they don't hire a lot of people through their HR department because they use Theoris to hire their people, that might be good information before you get online and apply just to every job you find online. There's a reason companies use recruiting firms. And it's usually because they don't have the HR capacity to find the talent that they need. Not every single one is like that. Small to mid-sized companies probably know exactly what they want, and the people making decisions are probably going to be the hiring managers directly. But once you get into the enterprise world where everyone's too busy, the Salesforce, companies, the big companies, the government, the state of Indiana, the giants in town, they've got layers upon layers upon layers. It might just be best. It might just be best to go through the people who knows managers. That's why you should ask your recruiter all the details you can. You know?
To add to your point about finish the job, you're on a contract. Indy is a small town. The developers know each other. So if you screw someone, the word will get around quickly that you screwed them. And it'll be harder to find a job. It's, you know, people know people, right? And they're like, oh, hey, you know what? Don't hire this guy. Don't hire this girl. Here's what they did to me on my last job. And that person talks to someone else.
And like transversely,
Yeah.
close enough. Conversely, thank you.
Maybe it's
like, since Indianapolis is so small, any connection you make can branch out very quickly and among the entire community. You know, I had a teacher who knew a few people. He connected me with like his network, and their network ended up connecting me with another network, which got me a job. The more, so with every interaction you have, just be the best person you can be, because that's what everyone wants to see, you know, and that'll make, you know, that's just better for you overall. So just treat every person you meet as a friend and a like gateway to new opportunities. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I like that. One of my favorite recruiters would tell me that, you know, treat everyone like, you know, it's the girl you want to date.
Yeah.
Everyone. I know that sounds weird, right? But probably not bad advice, especially in the workplace. You know, I'm not saying being cheesy and, you know, overly flattering, but be a little extra nice, even if it's not you. You know? I mean, I've got a resting face that looks like I'm not happy a lot of times. So I have to remind people that, you know what, I'm happy and, you know, I think you're doing a great job or whatever, you know, but share that love and it'll come back to you, I guess. So, well, thank you, everybody.